we are ready for part 2 of your piecewise function notes. So this is the next page in your packet there. We're going to do things a little different. We're going to kind of go backwards. I'm going to give you the function. I want you to evaluate, and then I want you to graph. So we're kind of doing the opposite of what we did before. So notice this one has 3 parts. 1, 2, and 3. Be careful on that middle one. That's a little tricky. Remember, if you want to, you can write these out as equations. So this first one would be like saying y equals 1/3 x minus 1. Which means the second one here is like saying y equals 2. Remember what that looks like. And the third one, y equals x squared. So kind of keep that in mind. These are the 3 equations you're dealing with. So actually what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and take a minute. Again, pause this video. I know the video just started. You're like, what? But pause the video. Take a couple minutes to do what you can. See if you can answer these questions here on this page before we actually get to the graph. Okay, so I want to just look at, can we get all the information written down? Do we know what it's going to look like? And then we'll graph next. Okay, so take a minute, pause the video. When you're ready, come back. I'll have all the answers ready for you then. Okay, and go. All right, welcome back. So if I'm plugging these in, again, I'm going to explain so you can follow along if you need to. If I plug in -6, that's going to go in the green section because that's less than -3. So I'm going to plug that -6 in here where x is. So it's 1/3 times -6 minus 1. So 1/3 times -6, -2 minus 1, -3. If I'm plugging in -3, that's again less than or equal to -3. So I'm going to plug it into that same green section. So when I plug that in, I get -1 minus 1, I get -2. All right. The next thing if I plug in would be 0. Okay, well 0 falls here in this blue section between -3 and 1. So that's going to be in the blue one here. And if I plug it in, notice there's really nothing to plug into, right? It's y equals 2, so it's just 2. If I plug in 1, that again goes right here, equals 1, so it goes in the blue section, so I again just get 2. If I plug in -2.9999, this is the tricky part, -2.9999, is that less than or greater than -3? It is greater than -3, so it actually falls in this blue section again. So if it falls in that blue section, I again just get 2. Alright, let's keep going. If I plug in -3.0001, or sorry, 001, one too many zeros there, that's going to go in my green one because it's less than -3. So that's going to go in the green, and use your calculator if you need to. It's about -2.000, I believe 3 repeating. I know there's a 3 there. I think it's repeating. Alright. So pretty stinking close to -2. It's like right there next to it. But it's not really -2. It's just close. We'll come back to that later. If I plug in 1.8, that's going to go in the purple section here because it's greater than 1. And if I square 1.8, you should get 3.24. And 10, again, greater than 1, so that's my purple section here. And so it's going to be squared, so I'm going to get 100. So I plug it in, 10 squared, 100. All right. So let's answer the questions then. How many pieces are in this function? I just color-coded them, 3 pieces. So when I graph it, I'm not going to do it yet, but when I do, the leftmost piece, so the big giant negative numbers all the way up to wherever my first stopping point is, right here is going to be, this is my leftmost piece. This is the green section. And it's going to look like a linear equation. It has a slope of 1/3, an intercept of -1. It's going to look like, it's going to look like this, right? Positive slope. That's really all I need to know. I'll graph the actual points later. The middle piece, that's this one here in the middle. That's my blue section. It looks like y equals 2. So remember what that looks like. It's also linear, but it's not just linear, it is horizontal. So it looks like this. And then my rightmost piece, the piece on the right side, is my positive numbers to infinity. So that's here where x is greater than 1. That's my purple. And so this is a x squared, y equals x squared. So it looks like a parabola. You could also say it's a quadratic. All these wonderful vocabulary words here. And so when I graph that, notice it's a standard x squared parabola, but I'm kind of starting close to 1 for greater than 1. And so it's like this right kind of side of the parabola. So it looks kind of like that. Right? It's going to look that way. All right, now we could also stop and talk about what those endpoints look like. So if I look at the leftmost piece, it's going to come all the way up to and equal -3. So when I draw this line up, when I get to -3, I'm going to put a closed dot on it. Okay. Notice for the blue one, it's open at -3, but closed at 1. So it's like open on the left, closed on the right. And the purple is open at 1, so it's going to look like that. So if I do that, notice I have my endpoints now too. So all I have to do is get some points in there and then kind of stick those pieces in my graph. Right? And that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to take that same exact function and we are going to graph this monster. Okay? It's really not that bad. But, so when x is less than or equal to -3, I have this graph. So here's my suggestion. If I look at that 1/3 x minus 1, right? If I don't have any points to put on that graph, it might be kind of hard for me to really know where to start. So I'm going to graph it like I do with any other linear function. I'm going to put my intercept at -1, and then I'm going to graph it with a 1/3 slope. But I know that my target here is really the negatives, so I'm going to just graph it to the left. So my slope is going to be 1/3, down 1 over 3, down 1 over 3. So that's my 1/3 slope with the intercept of -1. And then I'm going to, now that I have some points there, I'm going to take it and I'm going to cut it off at -3 and put my dot there. So when x is -3, this is the end point. So I'm going to erase the other points I have on the right. And then I'm going to put my line there. Let's see if I can get my line to go the way I want it to go. There we go. There we go. So that's my line. Goes to the left with an arrow, comes all the way up to -3, closed circle because it's equal -3 there. Alright? So again, I can draw the intercept of -1 if it helps me get my graph in the right place, but then I can just erase it when I don't need it. Okay? Now from there I move on to my second section, my blue section. Between -3 and +1, this looks like y equals 2. So again, what does y equals 2 look like? It looks like this line right here. I'm going to straighten that out. What parts of it don't I need? I don't need anything to the left of -3 or to the right of +1. And my endpoints, open circle, closed circle. That's exactly what we just did on this other page, right? Open circle, closed circle. So I'm just going to put my line and I'm going to make it actually look good here instead of just stuck in there. And I'm going to make it go from, let's see, blue line, -3, +1, and then I'll go back in and add my open circle here and close dot there. Alright, so that kind of shows me where that particular line is at. Good. So y equals 2 right through there. And then my third one, the third part here, y equals x squared. Again, I know what that parabola looks like, so I'm going to graph a whole bunch of it, and I'm just going to erase the parts I don't need. So the normal x squared kind of standard parent graph parabola, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9, it fits, yay. But again, I know that I only need the values greater than 1, okay? But that means I have an open circle at 1. So I'm going to go right here where I have 1, I'm going to put an open circle there. I'm going to erase everything to the left, which in this case is just that 1 point. And then I'm going to draw this connecting those parts right there. So let me fix my open circle. And I don't have a fancy line for this one, so I'm going to have to actually do it by hand. And it's going to look like that, sort of. Okay. Forgive my bad lines with the arrow at top. All right. So if I put all that together, that's what my function looks like. So I've taken the parts that I had here. Okay, I've used them to evaluate by just plugging them in. I figured out what that graph's going to look like just based on what I know these functions look like on the left. And then I put that into my coordinate plane. I could use these parts that I found. I could use these points to just check my work. If I plug in -6, I should get out -3. So if I go to the next page, when I put in -6, I should get out -3. So that's a point, -6, -3. So I can kind of use those points to check. Okay. Especially when we get to those little, that -2.99999 and -3.001. Those 2 points right there are right here on the graph. -2.99999 is right here. And -3.00001 is right here. So what they're showing us is they're showing us how in just that small little span, those couple of decimal places, we jump from one part of my graph to the other one just because I switched sides of -3. One's less and one's greater. Okay, so just kind of pay attention to where you're plugging those in to see where those would go. All right. Hopefully that all kind of makes sense to you and you can kind of see how that works. Maybe? All right. All right. So that's taking the equation, evaluating, and then making a graph. And that's it. So part 2, really short, shorter than the first part, a little bit. Your homework that I want you to work on is finishing the packet. There's 2 more pages left, pages 4 and 5. They're marked problems, and that's what I want you to do. I want you to do the other problems in the packet as homework to kind of practice everything we just talked about. If you need to, go back and watch these videos. So if you get stuck on something and you want to see me do it again, go back and watch the videos, flip back in your packet, or, you always have other online resources to help you out as well. All right? Best of luck. It shouldn't hopefully be that hard, and you should be able to get it finished and not have too much homework after you leave class. Okay? Let me know if you have any questions, and I will answer those next class. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.